Hello, welcome back to Beyond the Veil Background Information. We're doing an Angels and Demons profile, and we're doing an angel this time. And yes, we're still on the smaller angels, so there's not too much information about them, but most of it is going to be the profile I've made for them in my story. So, anyway, as always, I start with a quote from one of my little stories where they're mentioned, and then I'll give you the background information I have for them, and then my character profile. So, let's get into it. We're going to be doing Raguel. Okay, so Justice is my name, justice is my name, and it is I who stand in battle of Tammuz in the court of the Mastema. But in the manner of Baal, I fear there can be no defence for his actions. Quote from Ambitious Aim, which I am working on. Another of our less known but nonetheless important angels within Judaism, Ethiopian Orthodox, and mentioned by Enoch. Raguel is an interesting angel. Their names are varied from Raquel, Akraziel, and Raguel. Associated to them and their name is thought to mean God shall pasture or God shall shepherd, a term that may not initially make sense, but indicates the guiding and protecting role of a shepherd. Now, often Raguel is recognized as the angel of justice and harmony, but there are no canonical writings with him mentioned, although he is generally accepted as an archangel. As well as justice and harmony, he's often linked to vengeance, friendship, and even redemption, a good number of roles that can all be considered part of their duties as an archangel of justice. In angelology, he's often called upon by people to not only aid in relationships, making friends at awkward times, but also to help dispel demons and negative energies, which is actually rather pleasant. But the most interesting thing about Redwell is about their mentions in the Book of Enoch. Now, in the Book of Enoch, Raguel is one of the seven angels sent to watch over Earth. His number is six, and his role is to take God's vengeance about human luminaries. Yeah, sorry, about those luminaries that have gone against God's law. He's generally seen in this role as a sort of policeman amongst the fallen angels and demons, dealing with those that have been causing trouble and kicking them back into hell. This is how he's often considered the tough angel that can make it quite clear that by God's law you're taking the mick. I almost started to write about him as a cowboy rounding up loose demons when I was doing this. The places your brain takes you reading things. But now, in Book 2 of Enoch, which is debated on whether it is truly by Enoch or the equivalent to more modern fan fiction, Raguel is identified along with Sariel, potentially one of the many different Sariels, to gather Enoch up and guide him into heaven. So then, what have I done to heaven's own little sheriff? Oh no, now I've ended up putting that stereotype in my head. I'm going to be imagining an angel with a sheriff star and a Stetson to me. But yeah, so this is my profile for Ragwell. Name, Ragwell. Position, Angel of Justice. Story featured in Ambitious Aim. Role, Baal's Punisher. Gender, agender. Description, Ragwell is a brilliant reddish shade with violet eyes that flash with lightning, but beautiful giant, great cream and white wings that are so tall their shadow casts a cage of holy light about others. They are incredibly too, and though their gender is not always obvious, the air is dominating and a mix between an angry mother and a disappointed teacher. When they are calm, however, they are as soft as the creamy butterfly floating around, spreading harmony and friendship. Realm Heaven. Abilities he can. I've, I have to admit, although I've put agender, I have been writing male for these bits, so just as a note. Abilities: he can trap dark energy and reveal demons with the shadow of his wings and send them back into the pit with a clap of his wings. He can see the guilt of all beings and can guide them to redemption or to justice, and often his ability is to be the voice in the room that says, enough is enough, or shame on you. Master or the Almighty. Personality: stern, tough, the kind you can't win over easily. Raguel does their best to ensure that anyone who breaks the rules knows it, and is often thought of by the Mestema in particular as a bit of a slave driver, because they do tend to pop up there a lot for their duties and are assumed a bit of a nagger. They certainly don't mind battling anyone that they're sent to deal with, but when someone needs that little extra push towards doing something good, they would be the one to help them out. Relations: Michael. Raguel works most around Michael for justice and works with the guardian angels that beckon them for aid, and Raguel is on good terms with Michael to the point they could communicate well together. Mastema. Raguel works with Mastema as the representation of heaven, the defence of a being, and the push towards the soul's better point, and their learning from their problems. They see eye to eye mostly with Mastema because together they can make the better decisions if they trust in Mastema's judgment, which they always do. Thamus. Raguel often finds themselves at odds with Famous because although they often have to argue people's best sides against him when there is a chance of redemption, they find themselves in some level of agreement sometimes as to how harsh Famous can be with some very bad souls, and yet dismayed that even the simplest discretion that the merciful Almighty would forgive can be held against the soul. Sataneo. When Sataneo has identified someone who's decided to go against the Almighty after a test of faith, or someone that's been so grateful and then suddenly forgets respect, Raguel is often called to aid Sataneo in giving the soul a surprise or dealing with the evil about them. Raguel trusts Sataneo's thoughts, but often is much softer on souls than they are. History. Raguel is an angel that was amongst the wind angels. Raguel was one of the many that did nothing to go against the Almighty and would not even sniff at Lucifer's manners. However, when others did and the war started, Raguel proved that they were not only diligent in their duty fighting for the Almighty, but that they showed mercy and pulled the enemy onto their side with strong words of understanding of who they were. Raguel was responsible for pulling out all the angels that would become guardian angels under strict scrutiny. They aided in the cutting of wings, but showed gentility all the same, not lengthening the wound and helping to cast them out, joining Remiel in sending thunder and lightning and strong winds after them to speed their journey rather than letting them linger. Raguel's next duty was to handle those that had been brought back and to set them tasks to prove their ability to be redeemed. In doing so, they influenced the development of the virtues that came from understanding that they had been given one last chance and it was something to encourage in the next creation. When mankind was exiled from Eden, Raguel was sent to follow after them. They were present for the judgment of Cain after his death in the Hall of the Mastema and sent to watch over Earth and the population. However, they saw swiftly that demonic influences had a tendency to steer away from the divine's abilities, not to mention questioning and seeking answers from the demonic rather than from imagination, as well as the ignorance of the Gregorian sharing things made. However, they saw swiftly that demonic influences had a tendency to steer mankind from the divine's abilities, not to mention questioning and seeking answers from the demonic rather than from imagination, as well as the ignorance of the Gregorian sharing things made Raguel pull the Almighty's attention down, and thus it was Raguel who had to temper the Almighty to save the faithful and give a chance to mankind to do better. Upon doing so, Raguel was then faced with their biggest threat, Bol. Raguel, the only one that could stand face to face with Bol and push him back, but this has its limits, and Raguel will have their chance to bring Bol to justice in the end. Final comments. Raguel will end up being the hero type of my Bol story for obvious reasons, but I actually decided he'd only turn up towards the end. They're a very interesting angel that, although being an archangel is seen more as a lesser angel despite the fact they clearly have an important role, they're still kind of cool. Thank you for listening.